The blood test Dr. Zefk stood still in the white lab chamber, his blue skin glowing under the sterile lights. His long fingers tapped the control panel as he stared at the readings again and again. It made no sense, absolutely no sense. He looked up at the human sitting calmly on the exam table, a man named Corporal Jace, who had just finished his mandatory intake screening. Jace smiled like nothing was wrong, like his blood was not rewriting the known laws of alien biology. Zefk took a deep breath, though breathing was more of a slow chemical cycle for his kind. And then he walked toward the sample again, running the scan from the beginning. The blood cells did not just replicate, they adjusted, adapted, restructured when exposed to a toxin that should have shredded the cell walls. They simply changed shape and became resistant, just stretched and looked around. So how am I, Doc? Everything looked normal. Zefk did not answer, he just stared, his 4 eyes blinking out of sync. He stepped back and whispered under his breath, "What the hell is wrong with human biology?" He tried to remain calm. Maybe it was a scanner error, maybe the machine was misreading something. He switched to manual analysis and looked into the microscope with his central eye. What he saw made his nerves twitch. The cells were alive, more alive than anything he had ever studied. They communicated. They responded to sound, to heat, to his own. Gazayas looked a little confused. "Hey, you okay, Doc? You look like you seen a ghost." Zefk stood up slowly and forced a polite tone. "Your physiology is highly unusual. I will need to run some deeper analysis. That all right with you?" "Sure." Jace shrugged. "I mean, I signed the waiver, right?" "Poke and prod away, Doc." Zefk nodded and sent a silent command to isolate the blood sample. He needed time, privacy, and full control. He was not going to report this, not yet. His superiors would take the sample, weaponize it, erase it, bury it under regulation. Just as he began the next test, Jace coughed once, then twice, then collapsed. Zefk rushed to him, alarmed, his skin color darkening in panic. Jace's body was twitching, his pulse spiking, then dropping, then spiking again, his temperature rising far beyond safe levels. Zefk grabbed his scanner and scanned his lungs. There was a viral signature. No, this cannot be," he muttered. "It is VX variant class. This virus kills within minutes. No species has survived it. Without synthetic therapy, Jace should be dying right now, but instead, his immune cells were multiplying faster than any record in galactic history. They were swarming the virus, adapting, changing tactics, and then doing something Zefk had never seen before, absorbing the virus, rewriting it, using it. Zefk leaned back, eyes wide. This was not immunity. This was biological conquest. His own people, the Varelians, used nanotech to fight disease, slowly, methodically, like engineers. But this was brutal. This was wild. This was nature with a knife in its hand. He activated emergency medical override and called for assistance, but the system denied the request, stating, "Clearly human life form not prioritized in Biozoni medical hierarchy." He clenched his jaw, which for Varelians involved retracting their inner mandibles and shutting down their throat lights. He was angry, furious. How could the Council still treat humans like throwaway animals when they clearly carried something this powerful, this terrifying? Jace groaned, his eyes fluttered open, and he looked dazed. "What happened?" he asked. "I feel like I just ran through fire, then ice, then through a wall." Zefk scanned him again. The virus was gone. Not dormant, not weakened. Gone, replaced by something new, something that did not match any record in the database. He backed away slowly, his voice low. "You survived the VX strain." Jace blinked. "I did." "What is that bad?" Zefk looked at the glowing blood under his microscope. The cells were now shimmering. They emitted pulses like heartbeats, like signals trying to talk to something. "You are not sick," Zefk whispered. "You are something else." He turned to his console, encrypted his logs, and locked the sample room. No one else could see this, not yet, not until he knew the full extent of what he was dealing with, because this was not just a discovery. This was a warning. A human just survived the deadliest virus known to over 60 alien species, and in doing so, he had changed it and himself. Dr. Zefk looked at Jace, who was now sitting upright, rubbing his forehead and laughing slightly as if nothing had happened. And once more Zefk asked himself quietly and fearfully, "What the hell is wrong with human biology?" The Virus problem Dr. Zevk paced around the sealed medical lab, his long robe trailing behind as his eyes shifted between 3 different monitors. Each screen showed another layer of Jace's blood, the virus that had entered his system. VX class was one of the worst creations of biological warfare, long banned by the Varelian Accord. It had once wiped out entire colonies, but now it was gone, erased, not neutralized, not resisted. Completely rewritten, Jace stood beside the bio table, stretching his arms. Feeling better than ever, his muscles tingled, his mind felt sharp. He was even humming a tune without realizing he was humming. Zevk had stopped talking to him, only asking brief questions, now staring at his machines as if they were screaming in alien language. "I feel great," Jace said again, louder this time. "Doc, you hearing me? I could run a marathon or fight a dragon." Zevk did not respond. He was staring at a frame of the virus. No longer a virus, not anymore. It had fused into a new organic pattern, something like a key, a biological key waiting for a lock. He ran a deep scan on Jace's spinal fluid, and again, something impossible appeared. The foreign genetic code was not just in the blood. It had embedded into the neural layers, adapting, evolving. Jace's own body had decided that the virus was useful and had taken it in like a tool. Zevk muttered a string of curse phrases in Varelian, then slammed his hand against the wall. He turned to his console and activated the emergency bioethics hotline. Security clearance required, said the system. He input his code: report subject anomaly or containment failure, said the voice. Neither, Zevk replied. "I need to speak with a medical authority immediately." "Request denied," said the voice. "Human specimens fall outside urgent priority protocol under Directive 45." Zevk slammed his hand. Again, Jace raised a brow. "Everything good over there, or should I start worrying?" Zevk turned slowly, and his voice was quiet. "Too quiet. You are not supposed to survive that virus." Jace, "Not just survive, but evolve it, rewrite it." Just blinked, not sure what to say. "Well, sorry for not dying." Zevk ignored the sarcasm and walked to the DNA printout. "Your biology is not normal. It is unstable, chaotic, powerful. The virus became something else inside you, something that could help others." "Others?" Jace asked. "You mean it is contagious?" Zevk did not answer. He was already checking the air filters, checking the surface contact logs. He realized with a chill that 3 alien nurses had entered the room. Before the sample was fully sealed, they were exposed. He accessed the camera logs, then stared in disbelief. All 3 of them were in the nearby med bay right now, being treated for different conditions: arthritis, chronic lung scarring, nerve collapse, and all 3 had made miraculous recovery in just 20 hours. Zevk ran. He bolted down the corridor, passing curious staff, ignoring calls, ignoring protocols. He burst into the med bay and stared at the patients. Nurse with failing lungs was breathing clearly. Her scans showed new tissue growth. The elder Varelian with joint decay was walking without his cane. The youngest assistant, who had a tremor in his hand, was holding a glass perfectly still. Zevk pulled up all their charts. The changes were impossible, faster than any medicine, faster than any healing technology. He turned to Jace's chart again and realized with growing horror that Jace was doing this unconsciously. His biology was not just healing, it was teaching other biology how to do the same. The virus had become a bridge, a catalyst. Zevk ran back to the lab, locked the doors, and began transferring the core data to a secret storage node. "If the Kochi Council finds this, they will destroy it. They will erase it and destroy Jace," he thought to himself. Then a chime echoed across the room: medical violation alert, specimen contamination, level 2 biosecurity protocol. And Gadzev froze. He turned to the door, red lights flashing outside, armed guards approaching. No, this is too early," he muttered. A robotic voice came from the ceiling. "Dr. Zevk, step away from the human. The subject has been declared biologically unsafe." Jess raised his hands, joking. "Hey, what did I do now?" But Zevk stepped between him and the door. "No one is taking him. Not until I understand what this means. Not until I know what he is." The guards pounded on the lab door. Zevk whispered to Jace, "They are coming to take you, not for help, but to silence you. We have to get out before they override the door." Jace looked confused, still not understanding the danger. Zevk pointed at the backup exit and opened the bio-capsule that hid the emergency. "Root, get in now," as alarms echoed across the facility and lockdown spread through the alien medical base 1. Thing became clear to Zevk, and it chilled him to his core. Human biology was not weak, it was not simple, it was something the galaxy had never seen before, and it had just started changing everyone it touched. The biological weapon, the corridor lights, flickered as Zevk pulled Jace through the emergency tunnel. The sound of boots and metal grew louder above them. The guards were scanning every lab, searching for one human who had just become the biggest threat on the planet. Jace still had no idea why everyone was acting like he was radioactive. His hands glowed faintly with heat. His senses were sharper. He could hear Zevk's pulse racing, even though the alien barely had a heart. The tunnel ended near a utility shaft, and Zevk forced it open. "With his code ring, climb now," he ordered. Jace did not argue this time. His instincts were screaming. Something was wrong, something big. They crawled up 3 levels before entering a hidden research bay. This one was private, sealed, and never listed in any record. Zevk activated the stasis field and sat down, breathing heavy. Jace looked around the room, confused. "What is this place?" Zevk raised a shaky hand and pulled up a hologram. It showed dozens of blood cell samples, alien viruses, and glowing fragments of Jace's new DNA. "This is where I store forbidden research," he said. "Council banned this level of bioanalysis years ago. Anything that cannot be explained is usually buried. But your case, Jace, is not just unexplainable, it is dangerous, dangerous." "How?" Jace asked. "I feel fine, actually better than Finazevk." Zoomed into one image, showing a VX virus inside Jace's cell, or what remained of it. "You are not infected, Jace. You have changed. The virus became a part of you, and then you changed it again. It is no longer a virus, it is a blueprint." Jace laughed nervously, like a vaccine. Evok stared hard. "No, like a weapon." Jace stopped smiling. "Wait, what do you mean?" Zevk tapped the side console, bringing up more data screens. "Every species that has been in your proximity has shown accelerated healing, tissue improvement, even neurological upgrades. It is like your body is teaching them to adapt, but this is not a cure, it is forced evolution." Jace stepped back, his heart pounding. "So what are you saying? I am turning aliens into humans?" "No," Zevk replied. "Worse, you are turning them into something new, something that follows your biology." The words hit Jace like a punch. He remembered the nurse breathing better, the elder alien walking again, and the guards hesitating like they could feel something different. "I did not mean to do anything," he whispered. "I believe you," Zevk said. "But the Council will not care. They will see you as a biological invasion." Outside, sirens began to sound again. Lockdown level rose to red. Zevk turned off the lights in the lab and activated stealth protocols. "Someone accessed the core servers," he said quietly. "Someone knows now. They will come for you, Jace. They will take you apart and study you cell by cell." Jace clenched his fists. His skin sparked slightly. "What do we do?" "Run," Zevk said. "But not just run. We need to send your blood sample off-world, to someone who can protect the truth. Someone who will not erase it." Jace nodded, but just then a soft beep echoed through the lab. Zevk checked the monitor and froze. Someone was already downloading the sample. Someone in the inner council. Zevk tapped rapidly, blocking the connection. But it was too late. The data had been copied and flagged. "They know," he whispered, "and they will send a black unit." "Black unit?" Jace asked. "Execution squad," Zevk said flatly. "No arrest, no trial, only termination." Jace felt his body growing hot again, not angry, but alert. Every nerve in his skin seemed to respond to danger. Now he could feel it like wind in his blood. Zevk grabbed a small vial from the freezer and handed it to Jace. "This is your original blood sample before the change. Keep it safe. If we fail, this might be the only proof of what happened." Before they could move, the emergency wall collapsed, and armed Varelian soldiers entered, dressed in dark armor with shock rifles. "By order of the Council, the subject is to be terminated," one of them announced. No emotion in the voices. Zevk stood in front of Jace, but the soldiers ignored him. The rifles powered up. Jace felt something shift deep inside. Not fear, something else, like instinct. As the first shot fired, time seemed to bend around him. Jace moved before he thought, caught the beam in his palm, and twisted his body to the side, the energy wrapped around him and vanished like it had been swallowed. The soldiers paused, confused, gasped impossibly. Jace stepped forward, his eyes glowing. "I do not want to hurt anyone." He raised one hand and every piece of technology in the room shut down. The soldiers collapsed, not dead, just unconscious. The room grew quiet again. Zevk stared in awe. "You did not fight, you converted." The energist looked at his hands and whispered, "I think I am becoming something else." Slowly smiled, not in fear, but in wonder. "Maybe you are not the weapon. Maybe you are the cure, the human effect." Jace walked through the empty corridor with Zevk by his side, both silent, both aware that something had changed, not just in the lab, but in the very rules of biology. Reality had stretched, bent, and now it was rewriting itself around a single human who never asked for any of it. They passed bodies not lifeless, but unconscious. The soldiers lay in strange peace, their skin brighter, their pulses steady. Zevk scanned one of them and saw cellular growth, new pathways healing where there were no wounds. Zevk looked up and his voice trembled. "This is not just defense, Jace, this is transmission. Your biology is not only adapting, it is spreading." Jace frowned. "I did not mean to hurt them." "You did not." Zevk said. "You helped them, even as they tried to harm you. This is beyond immunity. You are imprinting something into others, not like a virus, not like a cure, like a seed. Something is awakening." They reached the underground rail station, and Zevk overrode the controls. They stepped onto the private line, a fast shuttle designed for deep core medical staff. The doors closed behind them, and the tunnel lit up with red emergency lights. "We are going to the central vault," Zevk said. "It is where the original medical laws are archived, old research, ancient tech, and perhaps a way to understand what you are." Bekomenjes leaned against the wall, watching his hands. They glowed softly. The light pulsed with every heartbeat, not just blood, but something deeper, something alive. The train moved fast and silent. The darkness outside gave way to faint glimmers of crystal walls and biocables. Jace closed his eyes and listened, not with ears, but something else. He could feel the city above him. Like it was breathing, he could feel every heartbeat of every creature. And it was terrifying. Zev kept scanning Jace's data, trying to slow it down, analyze it, but the numbers kept climbing. Every second more changes, every second more signals. Suddenly, Zevk gasped. The new data showed alien genomes responding to Jace's proximity. Species that had nothing in common were now synchronizing cell responses. He turned to Jace with awe. "You are creating a bridge, Jace, a biological harmony we have never seen before." Before Jace could answer, the shuttle stopped, power down, system offline. They stepped out into a vast chamber. The walls were lined with old machines, rusted tech, and floating scrolls. Zevk walked ahead, unlocking the ancient systems. One by one, this vault holds knowledge from before the council was formed. Zevk explained it was sealed when the council banned unsanctioned genetic work, but we might find the answer here. As they explored the chamber, Zevk found a hologram that responded to Jace's presence. It activated without command, showing symbols, patterns, and shapes of DNA. "Read them slowly," his voice low. "This speaks of an origin species, not Varelian, not Takar, not the old ones, but something seeded by the stars, made to correct imbalance, made to grow where others fall." Jace looked at the image. It was a human, or something close. "You think this is us?" Jace Skejevk nodded. "I think humans are not an accident. They are a failsafe, something built to push biology forward when the universe begins to collapse under stagnation." Jace stepped closer, and the image shifted. The DNA spiral responded to him. Lines lit up and merged with his pulse. Then the room shook. An explosion echoed above as Zevk pulled Jace behind a metal pillar. The ceiling cracked as a dark figure descended, wearing armor blacker than space. It was the Enforcer, the Council's final weapon, silent, ruthless, and always successful. "Target confirmed," said the Enforcer, voice like stone. "The subject must be contained. Termination authorized." Zev whispered, "Jace, if he touches you, he will not just try to kill you, he will try to erase you from memory." Jace stood slowly, the light in his skin brighter. "Now I do not want to fight," he said. Again the enforcer charged, a blade of plasma forming in his hand. He moved faster than any I could follow, but Jace did not move. Instead, he opened his hands, and the energy struck him and vanished like it had entered water and found peace. Enforcer stopped, looked at his blade, then back at Jace. "You cannot win," Jace said, "but you can change." Enforcer stabbed again and again. Each strike absorbed. Zev watched in silence, then stared as the black armor began to melt, not from heat but from inside. The enforcer was shaking, dropping the weapon, falling to his knees. Jace stepped forward and touched his shoulder. "You were made to destroy, but now you can choose." The enforcer froze, then dropped completely. The armor cracked, and underneath was a face not of metal, but a young alien no older than Jace, eyes wide with freedom. Zev stepped closer and saw the truth. Jace was not killing anyone, not breaking anything, was unlocking them, and the effect was spreading faster than they could imagine. The rebellion in the lab, the council chamber, was burning with voices. Every screen flashed alerts. Every senior Varelian commander was shouting orders, but no one had a solution. The biological readings spreading through the capital were rising faster than any virus, any cure, any known life form, and at the center of it was a single human. Jace was standing in a quiet corridor beneath the medical archives. Beside him, Dr. Zevk moved quickly, opening sealed panels and accessing forbidden files that had been untouched for centuries. "Entire place," Zevk whispered, "was built to protect life, not to erase it." The council forgot that. Jace watched the data swirl around him, images of alien DNA merging, forming patterns that mirrored his own. He could feel the walls breathing, the machines pulsing like they were waking up after a long sleep. "We need help," Zevk said. "My old assistant Leary is still working in the deep genetics core. If anyone can get your blood sample off this planet, she can." Just nodded, then stopped, his hand glowing brighter. "They are coming." Zevk looked at him. "How do you know?" Jace closed his eyes and spoke softly. "I can feel their heartbeat. I can feel their fear." Zevk stared, then motioned for the hidden tunnel. They escaped again through the ventilation shafts, silent, fast, and unseen. The city above them roared with confusion. Medical units malfunctioning, security bots turning off, hospitals reporting impossible recoveries, and the civilians, no longer sick, were stronger, faster, thinking clearer. The effect was spreading far beyond the lab. They reached the genetics core, a cold blue facility sealed by 10 biometric locks. Zevk entered his old credentials. The door hissed open. Inside was Leary, her skin pale, her eyes sharp. She looked up in shock. "Zevk, what are you doing here?" he explained in quick words, and when she saw Jace, she froze. "You brought the source." Jace looked down, unsure of what that meant, but Leary was already scanning him, her hands shaking. "This is not just evolution. This is biological revolution. Council sent execution orders," Zevik said. "We have to transmit his sample to the border colonies. If they learn what Jace is, they may help, or at least protect the truth." Larry nodded and opened the transfer bay. Jace walked toward it, but stopped as a sharp alarm pierced the air. "Unauthorized access detected. Elite strike unit inbound." Zevk cursed it and locked the door with a chemical seal. Leary shouted, "We have to buy time. Get the sample in now." Jace stepped into the transfer bay, his blood vial placed inside the scanner. Lights flared around him, and the signal fired into space, a narrow beam encoded and aimed at a hidden colony where knowledge was valued more than power. The moment it completed, the walls exploded. Soldiers flooded in, rifles ready, but something was different. They hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. Others looked at Jace, then at their own hands. Their bodies were changing, even as they stood there, bones realigning, energy flowing through them. Jace walked forward and said, "You do not have to follow broken orders." One soldier dropped his weapon. Another stepped aside. Then one screamed in rage and fired. The energy struck Jace in the chest, but instead of falling, he absorbed it. His body shimmered, and a pulse of light exploded outward. Not heat, not force, but life. Everyone in the room stopped. Even the air felt still. Jace turned to the last soldier holding a weapon and said, "It is not too late." The Soldier trembled and dropped the rifle. Dr. Zevk moved to the console and replayed the scans. What Jace just did was impossible. Even energy attacks now fed his transformation. You are no longer just human, Zevk whispered. You are becoming a living force. Leary stared at Jace. Do you even feel pain anymore? Ujis looked into her eyes and said, I feel everything. I feel joy. I feel sorrow. I feel fear, not for me, but for what this might become. Outside the city was changing. Alien children running faster, elders walking with strength, colors in the sky shifting. The very air felt different. Council broadcasted emergency messages trying to shut down communications, but it was too late. The message with Jace's blood data had reached multiple colonies, and the responses were flooding in, not fear but wonder. They called him the Awakening. Zev turned to Jace and placed a hand on his shoulder. This rebellion started in a lab, but now it is rewriting the galaxy. Jace nodded, but his face was not proud. It was heavy, because he knew what was coming next. The Council would never surrender power without a final war. The biological truth. The alien skies turned darker as the sun dimmed under artificial shields. The Council had activated full planetary lockdown, warning all colonies that a genetic threat was loose and had infected their world. But even as they shouted danger, their citizens were healing, transforming and waking up in ways no medicine could explain. Jace stood on the edge of a ruined rooftop, staring at the center tower where the highest council sat. He could feel them behind those walls. Not just their presence, but their thoughts. They were afraid, not of disease, not of war, but of change. Dr. Zevk joined him, his robe torn from escape, his hands still trembling from what he had seen. Larry was beside them, carrying an old device, a translator that could decode ancient biological language. The message we found, Zevk said quietly. It was not a warning. It was a disignal. Leary activated the projector. It hovered above the cracked stones and flickered with images, not of war, not of planets, but of beings who looked like humans standing in front of alien species, sharing something glowing from their hands. They were made for this, Zevk said, his voice shaking. Humans were made to fix broken evolution. They were made to restart life when it reached stagnation. They were not meant to rule. They were meant to unlock. Just watched the images, and he felt a strange ache in his chest, like memories, not his, like echoes calling from the blood. Projector shifted to a symbol, a star encased in a spiral. Then words formed in an old dialect, and Leary translated them slowly. When the stars fall silent, and the songs of life begin to fade, release the children of chaos, for they carry the song of rebirth. Just closed his eyes and whispered, I am not chaos. I am not death. I am what comes after. The ground shook as a massive pulse fired into the sky. The Council had activated the Terminus beacon, a weapon designed to erase biological frequencies across entire cities, a last measure for uncontained life forms. She are going to burn the city, Zevk shouted. They are going to erase all altered cells, including themselves. They are that afraid. Just did not move. Instead, he stepped forward, his body glowing now, not just light, but sound, a hum rising from deep within him. The air bent around his form. Grass began to grow from cracks in the metal, the stone beneath his feet healed itself. Stared in disbelief. Jace is rewriting the world. Leary pulled up a new signal. Colonies from other systems were arriving, but not to attack. They were watching, waiting. The message had reached the stars. Jace lifted his hand as the energy wave from the beacon fell toward the city, but it stopped above him. The light hovered, frozen, trembling against his will. He spoke softly to the energy. I understand now. You were made to destroy because fear built you, but I was made to heal because life built me. The wave cracked, shattered, and fell like ash into the wind, not harming anyone, only returning to the soil. Council watched from above their screens, failing their data, crashing their systems, confused. How is he still alive? One of them whispered. He is not just alive, another said. He is life. Jace turned to Zevk. I need to go below the planet. The pull is stronger. Now something waits for me. There's something. Old Zevk nodded, and together they took the deep path, ancient stairs that spiraled into forgotten ground. The walls pulsed with memory stone, etched with glowing veins. After Hours they reached the chamber, and the doors opened without a touch. Inside stood a single orb of light, floating silent, the size of a heart. Jace stepped forward, and the orb pulsed. It reached for him, not with wires, not with code, but with recognition. Zev translated the words forming from the orb. You are the final spark. You are the bridge between design and chaos. You are the memory of what was and the seed of what will be. Jace reached out and touched the orb, and everything changed. Chamber burst with light. Images filled the walls, not just of humans, but of hundreds of species, uplifted, reborn, made better by contact with ancient humans. The galaxy had forgotten them, but their purpose remained embedded in every descendant. Saw them all and knew the truth. Humans had been scattered on purpose, placed among stars as the last hope. He turned to Zevk and said, we were never meant to be the rulers or the destroyers. We were always meant to be the fire that wakes the force. Zevk nodded, eyes filled with awe. Then, above them, the stars themselves began to shimmer, because the awakening had just begun. The Forbidden's origin, the light from the chamber, faded slowly, leaving only Jace standing with his hand still touching the ancient orb. His body had changed now, no longer just human, but something higher, not God, not machine, something natural and powerful. His skin pulsed with energy, not from technology, but from something older, something written into the galaxy before history began. Zev stepped forward, carefully, unsure of what Jace had become, unsure if he was still the same man who walked into the lab days ago. Jace had turned, and his voice was calm. I remember now. Remember what? Zevk asked. Everything. Jace said, the origin, the purpose, the truth about humanity. He walked past the orb, which floated gently behind him like a living star. Humans were not made on Earth, Jace said slowly. That was never the beginning. Zevk topped. What do you mean? Earth was a cradle, a place chosen for one purpose, to grow us away from the old war. Jace looked upward, beyond the stone, beyond the ceiling, beyond the sky. There was a war, Zevk, a war between creators, not gods, but engineers, not machines, but shapers of life. They seeded species across the stars, some to build, some to guard, some to heal, and some to destroy. Zevk listened silently as Jace continued. We were the last design made with flaws on purpose, made chaotic so that we could not be controlled. We were scattered among dead planets and forgotten corners, so that one day, when everything else failed, we would survive. And we did. The galaxy erased our past, called us primitive, called us accidental, but all this time we were the correction. Zevk sat on a nearby stone, overwhelmed. You are saying humans were a failsafe? Yes. Jace nodded. Not the first, but the Feneliri entered the chamber, her face pale. She had just received a signal from orbit. The colonies have declared Earth a sacred site. They know now, Jace. The data is spreading across every species, across every system. Jace nodded, then looked around. This place, this chamber, this is not a ruin. This is a seed with a thought. The walls opened, not crumbling, but unfolding like petals, revealing rooms within rooms, crystals and machines, vines and light. Inside each room were figures, not alive, not dead, preserved, sleeping. Zevk gasped. These are early humans, or maybe prototypes. No, Jace said slowly. They are the originals, the ones who fell during the first collapse. They have waited here for a spark, and now you are that spark. Leary whispered. The chamber trembled as the figures began to breathe, lights pulsing in their chests like hearts returning from silence outside. The surface changed. The city that once tried to kill Jace was now alive, not in war, but in unity. Different species working together, healing together. The council had vanished, their towers empty, their systems broken, their laws forgotten, because the people no longer believed in control. They believed in Bekomingis stepped out of the chamber into the sunlight, his skin glowing, his eyes clear. The children ran to him, touched his hand, and felt warmth, not fire, not fear, but soft. Zevk followed close behind. His face changed, no longer a doctor of forbiddance research, but a witness of rebirth. What happens now? He asked. Jace looked at the sky. The stars seemed closer now. I go home, Zevk said. You mean Earth? Jace nodded. Earth is where it began, and where it must continue. The others will come to us, not in fear, but in hope. Leary smiled. Do you think they will understand? They do not need to understand, Jace replied. They only need to feel it as. The colony ships began to land as the orb followed Jace into the open air. As the trees bloomed again, as children with wings and gills and claws laughed together, the galaxy took its first breath as one. Not as rulers or subjects, not as machines or experiments, but as life, and in the center stood a single human, not chosen by fate, not crowned by power, but awakened by truth, the human who showed the stars what they had forgotten, that life is not perfect, that evolution is not clean, that chaos is not failure, but that the most dangerous thing in the universe is hope, and it had just been reborn in human form. The end of silence. Stars had no words for what they saw. The ancient systems that once tracked wars and bloodlines now blinked, wildly confused by what was happening. Life was not ending, it was beginning again. Not through machines, not through code, but through a species they once labeled as weak, unpredictable, unrefined. The sky turned silver as orbiting ships circled Earth, not as invaders, not as watchers, but as learners. Beings from every system touched by the awakening came not in armor but in silence. They came to feel what Jace had become. In the middle of the Earth's oldest forest stood a small hill covered with new green and glowing vines. At the top of that hill stood Jace, no crown, no throne, no army, only presence. No longer needed to speak, the life around him echoed his thoughts. Trees bloomed when he walked, winds danced around. Children laughter carried through the air like music, and even stone seemed to remember its warmth. Behind him Zavik and Leary stood close, their faces changed forever by what they had seen, by what they had helped rise. Zevk now taught medicine without borders, Leary guided lost species toward unity, but both still looked to Jace when the world felt uncertain. A creature with wings of liquid stepped forward, eyes wide, voice shaking. We were told humans were broken. Jace smiled and shook his head. We were never broken. We were just waiting for what the creature asked for the silence to end. Jace replied. A young alien child stepped through the crowd holding a simple flower. Her skin shimmered like water, and she looked up at Jace with wide eyes. Are you a god? Jace knelt beside her and took her hand. No, I am just a man who remembered who we were supposed to be. Orb floated above them, spinning slow and calm, and from within it came light, pure and endless, that flowed into the sky and painted every star with color. The systems began to hum again, not with data, but with harmony. Races that once fought for power now sang together in shared breath. Language was no longer a wall but a river, and in every corner of the galaxy one name passed like a gentle fire, not shouted, not forced, but remembered. A Jashi human who did not conquer, who did not bow, who did not burn, but who stood in the middle of a broken galaxy and became the spark that made it whole. There were no parades, no monuments, only moments of stillness, when all of life stood side by side and felt the same beat in their chest. Hope, and in that hope came healing, and in that healing came the truth that humanity was never lost, only waiting to be found, waiting to remind the stars what it meant to rise again, not alone, but together. The light grew brighter, the wind slowed, and the universe smiled for the first time in 1,000 years. The end.